Wild, dangerous, and completely unbelievable are just a few of the ways based on a true story. A new memoir from actor, gambler, raconteur, and Saturday Night Live veteran Norm Macdonald has been described. Mr. Macdonald's dry sense of humor established him as one of the most beloved and controversial anchors of Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, and as his book's title suggests, based on a true story, is much more than a memoir. It's a Hunter S. Thompson-inspired epic of the comedian's life, including classic jokes and long mythologized Hollywood stories, with guest appearances from Chris Farley, Rodney Dangerfield, Sarah Silverman, Adam Sandler, and many others. I'm very pleased it has brought Norm Macdonald to our show today. Hello.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm well. You talk about how the process of writing was not something that you really liked. You found it grueling. So what led you to even try to write a memoir?
Well, what happened was I was in a hotel room in Edmonton, Alberta, and my manager told me to look at my Wikipedia, and I looked at my Wikipedia, and somebody had changed my Wikipedia, and I was dead in my Wikipedia. And I had overdosed on morphine, which is some 19th century kind of drug to take, in the very hotel room that I was reading this. And so I chuckled as you did at first, but then I didn't. Then I got frightened because I knew that one day that would be true, you know. And
what, that you die of morphine, or
no, just that the tenses change.
Mm-hmm.
Is becomes was, and does becomes did. And so I thought, well, one day in the future, when Norm Macdonald was, that will be what's left, is a page on Wikipedia. So I said, I want to tell my own side of the story, and not just a series of facts, which I suppose is what a person's life is a series of facts.
Well, based on a true story, when we see that at the beginning of a movie, we know a lot of license has been taken.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, though, if you base something on... it's not really based on a true story. It's based on facts, but it is true. That's how I would say it.
How would you describe your writing style here? Are you using the truth as a stepping up point for some rather elaborate storytelling? And how does this kind of writing differ, or is it the same as what you do when you're doing a stand-up?
No, it's much different. I'm not an educated person, so I wish I was, because I would have been able to write the book. But I wrote 4 books. 4 attempts at this book. Not 4 drafts, but 4 entirely different books, until I came upon this one that I think works.
Well, you told the Washington Post.
Maybe doesn't, I don't know.
I can't imagine how anyone likes to write a blanking book. I couldn't hate it more.
Yeah, I hated it. I hated every moment of it.
Through much
I liked writing the end, those 2 words.
Through much of the book, you drink and do a lot of drugs and gamble. And
yes.
Are those things that you do on
I don't do them
day-to-day
now.
life?
No, sir. I don't do any of them, but I did do them. Yes, I did do them a great deal. I didn't enter show business until late in life. And before that, I was sort of a criminal. I had criminal. Yeah, I was a criminal, I suppose.
You engage in illegal activities?
Yes, sir. I did.
Wow, like what?
I would sell drugs. I would break and enter. Anything to
statute of limitations.
Anything to survive. You know, I was just trying to survive. I had no money, and I was only 14 or 15 when I left home. So
this is in Canada.
This is in Canada. So you do what you have to do, and it's not immoral. You know, there's nothing immoral about it. But you know, I remember we would steal electric typewriters. This is how long ago it was. And we would smash the window, and the alarm would go off, and we'd grab electric typewriters. And we used a cab. The cab driver would be involved, and then we would drive to an Indian reservation where the police were not allowed to enter, and that's where we would put all the goods that we had stolen.
Would they go to a fence?
Yes, exactly.
You also mentioned gambling. What does it feel like to lose your net worth, something you say that you've done twice in your life?
Yes, it feels very good.
It feels good to
Yeah.
to lose everything?
Yeah, you go to the coffee shop and you have a coffee and you feel fresh and you feel like, hey, I'm going to start over. I can do it again.
Really?
Yeah.
Is I've always
know-
wondered about the appeal of gambling. Because the little bit of gambling I've done, okay, sometimes I made a couple of bucks, sometimes I didn't, but it doesn't really, I don't understand the addictive quality.
I guess what you're addicted to is hope, which is not such a bad thing according to our president. So when the dice are in the air, anything can happen, and then it hits the cruel green felt, and sometimes you bust.
You, along with so many comedians of your generation, Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, Martin Short, Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Seth Rogen, Phil Hartman, Eugene Levy, Samantha Bee, are all from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something about Canada that produces all those funny people?
No, I don't think so. I think it's probably, we have 10% population of North America without Mexico, whatever that's called. So we have 10% population of what the United States has. So I would say it's probably, you mentioned 10 guys. I could probably mention 100 Americans.
Really? Well, but those are some of our favorites. And
they're my favorites. Yeah,
your
Martin
father was
Short.
a bit of a raconteur.
Incredible.
Did you think you got some of your comedic influences from him?
Yeah. Well, we lived a rather bleak existence when I was young. We lived on a farm that was sort of obsolete and it was just barren, rocky soil. So. And there was all those old men around, and but they were always happy and funny, even though their existence seemed bleak. That's why I was so attracted to Russian literature, because I saw all the people I knew in those books,
Like, we're talking about Shmedyadkov or Raskolnikov?
Like just Gogol and
the absurd guys.
The absurd, yes.
My guest is Norm Macdonald, who's written a book called Based on a True Story, a memoir. You spent 5 seasons on the cast of Saturday Night Live in the 1990s.
Yes,
how did you secure a tryout on the show, given the fact that your background was stand-up comedy, not sketch comedy?
Well, I was working on a show called Roseanne with Roseanne Barr, and I talked to the head writer of Saturday Night Live who liked me. He phoned me up and he liked me, and so he gave me the job. And so I went to Roseanne and I quit, and I came to New York. And then they told me, you're meeting with Lawrence tomorrow. And I'm like, what's that for? And they go, well, that's the audition, you have to audition. So I'd already quit my job. I thought I had the job. That was what I was told, that this was just a mere formality to meet Lauren, and then it turns out it's an audition. So I go in, and he goes, I'd like to, you have to do 2 impressions. We have to go to the studio, you have to do 2 impressions, 2 characters. Everyone has to do it. And I said, I got to go home because I can't do that.
I don't do impressions.
I don't do impressions, and I don't do characters. And I think he got a kick out of me or something. Lauren was always with me. He always thought I was just a big moron.
Well, he let you do the news. You're best known as the host of Weekend Update, or as you call it, the fake news. Did you do most of the writing for that, or was that something that was
I did most,
collaborated with?
But it was collaborative, but I kind of set the tone, and I tried to make the jokes different than other jokes. And we all tried to experiment. There was 3 of us, and we tried to experiment with comedy and the way that you tell a joke. And my idea was to strip bare all innuendo and all cuteness, and just leave the bare bone of the joke. And if it didn't work, then it wasn't a good joke to begin with. But if it just relied on tricks.
Were there certain stories that were off limits?
Oh, yes. You know, people always ask me, because I do stand-up, you know, is anything off limits? And I hear comics go, nothing's off limits. And I think almost everything's off limits for me.
And you learned, of course, that the O.J. story might have been considered off limits. You were doing this during the time of the O.J. trial, and you got a lot of humor out of that. But
well, yeah.
How and when were you aware that NBC President Don Ohlmeyer was a good friend of O.J.'s?
I found that very strange. Well, listen, I admire that he stood by him. You know, he stood by his friend. But the jokes I did about O.J. were filled with moral outrage and righteous indignation because I didn't like him.
You didn't like him as a person? You knew him?
No, sir. I didn't. I didn't like. I don't like murderers, and I was convinced he was guilty, even though he was, you know, innocent, as it turned out.
Well, he was found not guilty. It's not the same thing.
Listen, I don't think it's
many
fair.
people believe that he was a murderer.
I don't think it's fair that he was given 40 years for stealing his own shirt. You know what I mean? I don't think that was fair. That he was obviously. Found guilty of the previous crime.
But do you think you were let go, as some do, because of the O.J. jokes?
I don't know.
David Letterman said of you, there may be people as funny as Norm, but I don't know anybody who is funnier. And if we could have, we would have had Norm on every damn week. You had obviously a very special relationship with him, and you performed the final stand-up set on his last year.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was the last. Stand-up set, and everyone was being very cool with Letterman, very ironic, and that's not how I felt about it. You know, as it came to an end, because he was such an important person in my life, and I feel he was a very important person in culture. I think he changed the way everybody thought and spoke. You know. And so he was very important to me, and I just watched it and saw everybody be cool, and I was not cool about it. I was very sad that he was leaving.
You got very emotional. Well,
I did.
You followed Donald Trump on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon last
yes,
week, one of the more controversial interviews with Donald Trump.
You know, when I saw it, I didn't think it was controversial. I mean, goodness gracious, it's Jimmy Fallon. He's maybe he blew his chance to be host of Meet the Press, but it's Jimmy Fallon.
Maybe he'll get Matt Lauer's job.
That's right. Oh, yeah, it's Jimmy Fallon. What do you expect? I mean, that's why Donald Trump did it. But I will say this, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, my God, Donald Trump is being very reasonable and measured. This is getting a little frightening. Like, maybe he can pivot. I don't know.
You've had your own television series, which lasted 3 seasons. You co-wrote and starred in a feature film. You've done voiceovers, had a short-lived sports show, a podcast, and even played Colonel Sanders in KFC commercials. Yet you remain somewhat a cult personality. How does that sit with you?
Well, all that stuff is that you mentioned is pretty subpar nonsense. All I really do is stand-up comedy. You know, that's what I'm good at, and everything else came from stand-up comedy just as an accident. But I'm very, very good at stand-up comedy, and the rest is just free money.
How much does the act change show by show?
My act?
Yeah, but for example, Lenny Bruce, it was always different. On the other hand, George Carlin wrote out an act, and
yes,
he would revise it a bit over the course of a year. But
he was very precise, George Carlin. His word
even
for
the
word.
uhs and the wells were written in.
Yeah, he was amazing. But no, my act's almost always different. I have so much material because I don't do specials. You know, I mean, I'm doing a special in a month. I shouldn't say that, but I don't do as many specials as everybody else. So I would say I have about 10 hours of material, and most people don't. So I just mix it up, you know. Sometimes I will talk to the audience, and whatever they say, I will talk about whatever they say, because I have a material.
Improv.
I have material on almost. It's not improv, no. It's I have material on nearly every subject.
Comedy Central's president, Kent Alterman, described your absence from the airwaves as one of the great injustices of the world.
Yeah,
but he could give
if
you
only
a
he
show.
knew somebody.
Well, has there been talk about Comedy Central?
I don't know. I haven't been home since then. I've been on the road. But yeah, I read that. It was funny.
Well, considering what you've said about writing this memoir, can I assume that one of the things you won't be doing in the future is writing more books?
I'll probably write more books, yeah.
You will write more books?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, as much as I hate it, I feel compelled to do it. I can't explain it. But once I started writing a book, I knew that's what I should be doing. And I always thought I should be doing stand-up. And once I started writing a book, I realized I should be writing a book.
But writing funny in a book is different than writing funny for stand-up, because in stand-up, there's the tone of your voice, there's body language.
Yes.
Here, you just have to make people laugh because of the words that you've used.
It's almost impossible. Like if you go to a library, the last place you want to be is the humor section. You know, good Lord, it's awful. And in the history of America, you know, who has there been? You know, Mark Twain,
Will Rogers.
What's the other fellow's name?
Well, there have been
Josh. Can't remember his last name. But this was long ago. But modern, you know, humorists would be like Irma Bombeck and this kind of garbage.
Well, there have been some funny ones too, but
who's that?
Well, we'll talk during the break, because I have to announce that you'll be speaking with Vulture editor David Marquez. Is it Marquez?
Yes.
Tonight at the Union Square Barnes & Noble store at 7 o'clock.
Yes,
the
sir.
book is based on a true story, a memoir. It is published by Spiegel and Grau. And my great thanks to Norm Macdonald for
Thank you,
being our
Landon.
guest today.
You're a scholar and a gentleman, sir. I appreciate it.